Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Housing Committee meeting of October 23rd, 2019. We are in room 1010, City Hall, 3 p.m., 200 North Spring Street. I am Gil Cedillo. I'm joined by my colleagues, the Honorable Paul Krikorian and the Honorable and esteemed Marquise Harris Dawson. I want to have us commence with public comment. Let's take care of that first. We'll do general public comment, and if you have multiple items, you will then be able to speak for an additional minute, 2 minutes in the entirety. So let's begin with Sharid, C-H-R-I-D.
Chris, C-H-R-I-S.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah, Chris. He's the same one. He made a mistake. Yeah.
That's okay. Chris, please join us.
Sure. Name is Christopher. I'm a person that was previously homeless. I've been housed for a year. Been here a few times to speak on the issue of homelessness. One thing that I didn't do when I was here before was to mention, I spoke about general barriers to housing. This time I'm here to be specific as to what my barriers were to housing. So I went into a program where the CS gives all their money. That's the OPCC LAMP. People enter the CS OPCC LAMP. I've got 30 seconds, so I'm going to say that they got my match. They skipped my match, gave it to a client of theirs. Had I not been calling them every day and called down to the Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority, I would have never known that I had a match. And they were perfectly willing to leave me homeless for a year. This helps nobody. Skid Row Housing Trust. I got matched to them, went to their apartment complex. The manager refused to interview me and refused to give me a reason. People that are in the CS should be given the same rights as conventional housing.
Thank you.
Tell me why you're refusing me housing.
Okay. Thank you for joining us.
You have a good day.
You too.
Mr. Chair, that is the only general public comment. Want to close the general public comment?
Your multiple comment.
We opened up multiple item comment.
Mr. Wayne, please join us. And then I had Red Chief Hunt. Mr. Hunt, please join us.
Crazy fool talking about. Signed up for all that.
Tomato. Come on.
Yeah, the Marquise won't give me 4 minutes. Yeah. So we talking today, and I know Marquise Harris Dawson, the bastard child of Marquise Harris Dildo Dawson. He turned his chair around, so I see the back of his head. Now, you see what he's doing is that's a tradition of stupidity.
Focus on subject matter,
yes,
please.
it is. He need to be facing the folk when he talking, you see, because now Gil Cedillo, a.k.a. Gil Cedillo, is about to change shit for people in 4 units or less. Now, here's the plan. We're going to let RSO be effective in rent-controlled apartments if it's 4 units or less, and the owner lives in one of them. Now, we want to expand it and make it all applicable in the 1st district, the 8th district, that you Marquise, the 2nd district, and the 9th district, and the 10th district. Now, white folk up there in the 3rd district and the 12th district don't like it. Fuck them. We won't have them. We don't need them. But we need this down here now. Now we need to open it up. Gil Cedillo, a.k.a. Gil Cedillo, has seen the light because Lhasa took a big black dildo last year and stuck it up my ass when they told me my 1 unit was RSO when it's not supposed to be. It started the revolution. So yes to the Gil Cedillo plan to let RSOs rent under the goddamn guise of Airbnb if the owner lives there and there's 4 less units. Let's start the revolution. Yes, sir. Now I get my 1 minute, General. Yeah, I get my 1 minute, General. Correct, Amundo?
No.
I signed up for it. I signed up for my general public comment too,
Please go ahead.
and multiple agenda items.
Wait till
Multiple items.
Mark.
Is it 2 minutes?
Don't do Mark.
This is Todd Leung, Mr. Chair. Did you indicate that earlier, if I heard you correctly, that it was 2 minutes total for public comments for general and multiple, or was it just the multiple?
I indicated general and
Multiple.
Then you get 3.
general multiple.
And that was for 2 minutes in which the speaker got his time?
3.
Yes.
You get 2 for all the items and 1 general.
It was 1 and 1.
You always do 2 and 1. He does that 1-1, but that different. Because he's insane. Everybody else give me 2 plus 1.
We're spending more time.
Yeah, 2 plus 1.
I will,
Okay.
no.
Multiple
No,
plus,
No, that was not what I said.
multiple 2
That's not what I
plus
said.
1.
And it's not what I always do. I'm going to give you 1 minute, but that's not what I said. So just commence with your 1 minute and let's move forward.
All right. I wait for my minute. So yes, he can turn his city around again.
Speak on some subject matter related to
That's
housing.
right. So anyway, I was at the plum meeting all day
Subject matter
yesterday.
related to housing.
Housing is on the plum if it refers to RSO amendments. Yes, it is. So here's the deal. You got 3 council members, and there's only one that believes in mom and pop rentals on 4 units or less of owner-occupied housing. That's Gil Cedillo. Now, Marquizzi, he didn't support it. He say no. That when you have a mom and pop rental unit, that you can't RSO and have Airbnb in the same building. That's wrong. So let's do it. In fact, let's open Airbnb to everything in the city of LA for 1 year. Come back and I'll file my report and tell you how it is. That's what we'll do. Thank you so much.
Mr. Hunt, you have 3 minutes combined.
Okay, well, I just want to do general public comment, actually. Cedillo, hats off to you on this, trying to work with Airbnb. I think that's a great idea. But also, I want to say this about the homeless initiative and things like that. We have to extend our welcomes and extend our greetings out to the people, and we have to try a lot harder to get these people's house and homeless. Mark, it's okay to turn around. I don't do personal attacks on anybody. I don't feel that that's in the best interest of the public. So that's just nonsense to me. So. With that being said, you guys keep on doing a good job. But I don't do personal, and I come down here to face the issues and talk about what's going on real, and that's the homeless people, and that's what I'm here for. Congratulations on your win, Paul Kokorian. Hey, you deserve to win. I don't do personal. Thank you. Red Chief Hunt.
Thank you, sir. Okay, let's move forward.
Item 1 on the agenda is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Jesse S. Noonan to the Commission on Community and Family Services for the term ending June 30, 2020, to fill the vacancy created by Kevin Taylor, who withdrew from consideration.
Okay.
I think this may be a consent item.
Ms. Noonan here? You want to come up and say hello to us?
Oh, I didn't know she was here.
Tell us what compelled you to accept this appointment and what your goals are and what vision you have.
Sure. It's Miss. Just okay. Everybody always thinks with Jesse that it'll be a man. I have been working in education for the last almost 20 years. I started my career at Locke High School. and have always been working in either schools or nonprofits supporting wraparound services for youth and their families. So I was very excited at the opportunity to serve the city and to serve particularly youth and families in the communities that I've always served as an educator.
Mr. Krikorian? Thank you. Thank you.
Any items on this one?
Thank you for being willing to serve.
Thank you.
Is the committee approving the appointment?
Yes, without objection. Move to approve. Congratulations.
Item number 2 is a report by the Los Angeles Housing Department and the CAO relative to amending sections of the municipal code regarding rent stabilization ordinance for registration fee increase effective January 1, 2020. And also changes related to the interest and earnings attributable to monies in the Rent Stabilization Trust Fund to credit them to the fund.
Okay. We're going to have a public comment on this first. I have Carlos Aguilar, Danielle Liedner Perez, Renee Moya, and Steve Diaz.
Carlos Aguilar, Coalition for Economic Survival. CES supports HSID's fee increase request for unit registration. This fee is crucial to ensuring our rent control law is administered and enforced. The fee will still be one of the lowest in the state. Also, with the new programs, including tenant anti-harassment programs, a right to counsel, expansion of eviction protections, and covering new units under AB 1482, the department needs more revenue. But to ensure equity and more evenly distribute the costs, we ask that the SCEP fee be equally split between tenants and landlords. SCEP was established to ensure landlords maintain their properties. It is unjust to and it makes no sense that the entire burden of that fee rests on the shoulder of the tenants. As the unit registration fee is approved, council must also request a proposal to equally share the SCEP fee between tenants and landlords. Thank you.
Danielle.
Hi, good afternoon. Danielle Leidner-Perez with AGLA. We are very supportive of the recommendation to allow for RSO fees to be passed through to renters and owners on a monthly basis versus annually. However, while we acknowledge that the increased costs associated with maintaining RSO operations, we still believe that committee should approve the lowest fee adjustment to maintain current programs. The higher fee adjustments would be allocating funds for 3 new programs that have not been established and to which we oppose. The fees for these new programs serve no regulatory purpose and are entirely for the benefit of renters. As a result, they should bear the burden of these costs. Owners should be permitted to pass through all costs related to these programs. Thank you.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Renee Moya with AIDS Healthcare Foundation. I would like to second some of the comments from my colleague from CES that we think that these fees are actually a good thing if we want to make sure that the RSO is going to be enforced properly. We know from a lot of anecdotal evidence that it's extremely difficult for a lot of inspectors and investigators to do their job properly because they're stretched so thin. And we also know that because of, again, these programs that we do support, like the anti-tenant harassment ordinance, the changes that are going to come as a result of the implementation of AB 1482 starting January 1st, 2020, and other possible programs that we hope that the council will adopt at some point, then we think and expect that these fees are going to be necessary. I would also like to echo the comment that we think that a split 50-50 burden between landlords and tenants is absolutely crucial. Ultimately, it is not just the tenants who benefit from an affirmative research program. Landlords ultimately are able to capitalize on well-kept properties, and they're the ones who end up getting the lion's share of investment value from it. So this is a 50-50 split. Thank you.
Sorry.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Steve Diaz, and I am with the Los Angeles Community Action Network. Today, we're here in support as well of the proposed fee increase for the registration fee. Moving forward, though, we would like to ensure that any fees are split 50-50 and that the balance that was meant to be created by the RSO is maintained in order to ensure that tenants are able to benefit as well as landlords. And your report that the city conducted in 2010, it showed that landlords who fall under the RSO actually have better earnings than non-RSO units. So that's an important economic fact that folks must remember. Additionally, in this time of homelessness and this time of rapid gentrification and displacement that's occurring, it's imperative that we ensure that while these fees are moving forward, we also look at other fees that are associated that are impacting tenants, such as the mandatory and guaranteed floor increase that's allowed under the city's rent stabilization ordinance. We must act to ensure that balance exists between landlords and tenants, which was the original intent of the RSO. Thank you.
Can we have Ana Ortega and the CEO's office come up?
Good afternoon, Councilman Ana Ortega, Housing and Community Investment Department and Director of the Rent Stabilization Ordinance Division. So this report is about our recommendations for a fee adjustment from the current RSO fee of $24.51 to provide funding for continuation of services under the Rent Stabilization Ordinance. This is for the annual registration fee for all RSO units. That is almost the sole source of funding for the entire administration of all RSO programs. So it's paid for on an annual basis by landlords. The bills go out in December, and the last day to pay is the last day of February of each year. The ordinance allows a 50% pass-through to the tenants of the fee. So our report originally recommended an increase of $44.31. We understand that the CEO is recommending an adjustment to $38.75. Our report had basically three recommendations. One was to adjust the fee, second was to allocate interest to the rent trust fund, and third was to mitigate the impact on tenants of this higher fee by allowing it to be passed through on a monthly basis rather than the way it's allowed to be passed through now, which is a one-time surcharge in the month of August. So because the fee passed through of the tenant's portion is approaching $20, and that could be a significant cost to a low-income family, we are trying to make that a bit easier by allowing it to be passed through on a monthly basis. The fee recommendations were developed by Bay Urban Economics, a consultant we hired to conduct the study so that it would be conducted by an objective financial expert. They worked closely with us in coming up with the recommendations. I will just mention that as part of the study, they looked at the fees by other rent-controlled jurisdictions in the state, and those are significantly higher as a rule than the RSO fee. They average about $135 per unit per year, where ours is the lowest in the state. And even once this fee adjustment is approved, we will still have the lowest fee in the state. The closest comparable fee is the city of San Francisco with $45 per unit per year. There are a number of factors that lead to the need to increase the fee. First of all, it hasn't been increased since 2012. At that time, when the council approved the fee, it was projected to be adequate for 3 years. And so we've gone many years beyond the expected life of the fee, largely due to salary savings. During those 12 years, and in our report, we describe in more detail the increases in work and programs that have been that have become part of the rent stabilization program. For instance, the council approved the rent registration program, the cash buyout tenant notification program, and increased Alice monitoring services, and did approve positions for that, but the fee was not increased to provide funding for those services. Additionally, just in the nature of our work and the housing market, cost and recovery applications, for example, have increased by 357% since 2012. Our hotline calls have increased about 30%. Complaints from tenants about potential RSO violations have almost doubled to about 10,000 per year. No-fault evictions, which are also processed by our staff, have increased by 618%. So there have been very significant increases in workload that necessitate adequate funding to maintain the services that are required and expected under the rent stabilization ordinance. Again, it's passed 50-50 to the tenant, so the new fee would amount to, as recommended by the CAO, would amount to a share of $19.37 to the tenant and the landlord, or 59 cents a month of an increase to the tenants. So we feel that it is a relatively modest fee. The monthly pass-through would then work out to be $1.61 per month. That's for the entire fee. We do have an issue of timeliness because the bills are only done once a year. They need to be finalized in November to be mailed in December. That's about 120,000 bills. Again, so that landlords can pay their annual fees in January and February. That's my presentation. I know the CAO has their report also.
Good afternoon. Emily Zen Cervantes from the Office of the City Administrative Officer. And we reviewed the fund analysis and fee studies supporting HUD's recommended fee increase. And after discussions with the department as well as the consultant, we support an alternative fee proposal of $38.75 to reflect the department's projected expenditures for the current year, a 5% vacancy rate, and current level services through 2022, as well as full reimbursement to the general fund for related costs. We also concur with amending the municipal code to allow a monthly pass-through of 1/12 of 50% of the tenant's share of the fee. However, our office does not recommend letting interest earned remain with the fund, which would result in an estimated reduction of $260,000 in revenue to the general fund annually. We also have an additional recommendation to have HUD report back after the 3 proposed programs, the tenant anti-harassment, the eviction prevention and defense, and the just cause programs, and any requested resources for implementing those programs are approved by council, and then they can do a subsequent fee study and report back for an additional fee adjustment prior to 2022 if needed. And I would like to, I'll read the actual recommendations for the record. So our recommendations are that the council, subject to the approval of the mayor, 1, authorize the increase of the rent stabilization ordinance rental unit registration fee to an amount up to $38.75 per unit annually, effective in the 2020 billing cycle and with corresponding revenues to be reflected in the 2021 budget. 2, authorize the monthly pass-through of 1/12 of 50% of the RSO rental unit registration fee to tenants. 3, I am actually amending the recommendation or report that will be uploaded to the council file, and that is to request the city attorney to prepare and present an ordinance amending section 151.05 of the Los Angeles Municipal Code to adjust the RSO rental unit registration fee to an amount up to $38.75 and allow a monthly pass-through of 1/12 of 50% of the fee to tenants instead of an annual lump sum. 4, direct the rent adjustment Commission to adopt regulations necessary to implement the amendments to the RSO, and 5, instruct HUD to conduct a subsequent fee study and report back to council after the new programs have been approved, and any additional resources for implementing them as well.
We have a technical addition. The instruction to the city attorney should be to prepare and present the necessary ordinances to implement the adjustment to the fee by amending sections 151.05 of the LAMC, as well as section 15109A1, which is related to payment of the fee.
Mr. Corcoran?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you run by me again the interest issue that you mentioned and the impact on the general fund? I didn't
Sure.
follow that.
So the issue is, so H is requesting that interest earned on the cash, on the fund be retained with the fund. Currently, what happens is that any interest earned on the rent stabilized trust fund, which, where the rent fees are deposited into, goes to the general fund.
Right.
So we estimated that based on the cash balance of the fund over the past 2 years, it leads up to about $260,000 in interest earned that is deposited into the general fund. If council approves of H's request to have it remain with the fund, then we will be losing $260,000. The general fund will be losing $260,000 in revenue annually.
Okay. So, but if we don't address that, it would be treated the same as every other fund like this, in which case the revenue earned would go to the general fund.
I should know.
I shouldn't say every other.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's every other, but that's the standard practice.
There are several fees there are several. It depends on the ordinance, and so some ordinances will say that the fund that's established is interest bearing, and so there's some special fees, special fund fees that retain interest, and some that don't. HSID has some that do stay with them, but this one, which collects a lot of revenue throughout the year, is deposited into the general fund. So they're asking for an amendment to the administrative code, which we don't agree with.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would just move the CAO's recommendations.
I'm happy to do that with the exception of the interests. I think it should stay with the department. I think it should be one of those for which they have, that this is a program that's very important to the department, the operations of the department, and these are the responsibilities that they have, and we should not be taking the interest that accrues from their efforts and moving it into the general fund. I ask that you wear your housing hat at this moment and be a partisan for this department.
I don't have a budget hat, so I'll second your.
And join us in a unanimous decision.
Well, being budget chair, you have to be able to count. So, all right. No objection to that.
So with that carve out, we'll take the CAO's.
You're moving the CAO report with the inclusion of the interest to the fund, the amendment to the administrative code, is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And additionally, it's important that we instruct the city attorney to prepare and present the ordinances, since they have to expedite those also. So that would be to prepare amendments to the RSO sections 151.05 as well as 151.09A.
Thank you.
Right.
You got that?
Yes.
So be the order.
Thank
No
you.
objection. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have items 3,
The
5 for consent.
the next item, the CAO report is on file, but all the remaining items do not have the CAO report on file. So they'll have to read them for the record.
Please read them for the record.
Yeah, but item 3, you can go do consent if you wish. Item 3 is a HCLA report and CAO2 report, and report relative to approving the proposed selection criteria for the 2019 Round 5 funding opportunity of the Strategic Growth Council's Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program.
You want to read them all so we can move them as consent?
As my understanding that the CAO report is now on the council file, so I don't, unless there are any amendments or changes, you can approve on consent if you wish.
Okay. Next.
Next item is item number 4, HCLA report and CO, both HCLA and CA reports relative to accepting and expending the 2019 Community Development Grant of $400,000 awarded by CIT Bank for the city's low-income purchase assistance homeownership program and applying for a 2020 Community Development Grant of $400,000 from the CIT Bank's 2020 grant allocation for the low-income, for the LIPA homeownership program. And I think there's some corrections to the report.
Record.
Hi. Good afternoon. My name is Gloria Torres. I'm the Homeownership Unit Manager with the Los Angeles Housing and Community Investment Department.
Let's see Aziz.
You have amendments, changes, we're ready to move this.
Yes, we are requesting a technical adjustment to our recommendations. This would be to authorize the city controller to authorize the city council to authorize the controller to implement the instructions. So it's just minor language. But the overall report or our request is we're seeking authority to accept and expend a 2019 Community Development Grant of $400,000 from CIT Bank for the citywide low-income purchase assistance homeownership program. We're also requesting authority to apply for a 2020 Community Development Grant from CIT Bank for the same amount for the same program.
Anything else?
No, that's all.
In this case, I don't know if you all be accepting the CAO report with the technical corrections mentioned by the HCLA.
Okay. So be the order. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 5 is HCLA report and CAO2 report relative to amending the policy on conversion of former CRALA loans into service payback loans.
Good afternoon, council members. Marilyn Orellana Farias with the Office of the CAO. As said, HCID is requesting authority to amend the policy on the conversion of former Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Los Angeles to include HCID loans. Subsequent to the release of the HCID report, the HCID requested 2 edits. One, to extend the loan term of 6 projects instead of the original 4 projects included in their report. And second, to change the name of one of the projects from LA Family Housing to Cesar Chavez Triangle. And now I'm going to read the CAO reports, recommendations into the record.
Who's making this recommendation?
Sorry?
This comes from the CAO?
CAO report, yes.
Okay.
That the council, subject to the approval of the mayor, adopt the Housing and Community Investment Department's proposed amended policy on conversion of former Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Los Angeles and HCID loans into service payback loans, included as attachment B of the HCID transmittal dated July 12, 2019, included on the council file. Number 2, authorize the general manager of the Housing and Community Investment Department or designee to, 1, negotiate and execute amendments and take necessary actions to convert the existing residual receipt loans for the projects listed in the table included on the CAO report into service payback loans, subject to the review of the city attorney as to form and legality. And B, negotiate and execute amendments to take necessary actions to extend the loan term for the 6 projects listed in the table of the CAO report for new loan maturity dates of 2020, subject to the review of the city attorney as to form and legality.
No objection?
I just have a couple questions.
Yes, please.
So the idea of service payback loans is a little new to me, I'll admit. Reading the report, I think I get it. This kind of conversion under our policy only applies if it's been a nonprofit service community serving organization since the inception of the loan, first of all, right?
I'm going to let a representative from HCID respond.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Craig Arsenault from HCID. Yes, the answer to your question is yes. So the borrower would have had to have been a nonprofit service provider from the inception of the loan.
Okay. So because we have had other situations where some developer under a TEFRA loan or some other situation comes in, agrees to a whole list of community benefits as a condition of receiving that loan, doesn't deliver on the community benefits, and still gets the full benefit of the loan. We've had that come up multiple times, and some of these developers have just ripped off the city and the community by failing to deliver those community benefits. This is a different situation than that because these are folks that even before getting the loan were already providing those services. It wasn't a condition of the loan.
That's correct. The services they were providing were included as part of the loan agreement terms, but they were not being allowed to pay down the loan by way of those service credits. The existing loan is set up as either residual receipt or a deferred loan, and we're proposing to convert those loans to service payback and allow them to pay down the loan via the services they're providing.
So this wouldn't create any kind of a precedent for a situation where some other landowner, developer, whatever, could receive a loan and then negotiate, say, because they can't repay the loan, to do service instead of that. This is limited to only the situation that you've described.
That's correct.
Okay. And so then the final point is, how do we audit this? How do we determine that, in fact, services are being provided and that those services are of a value equivalent to the loan repayment?
So the way that we're valuing the services is, in essence, a 1 year of the loan term is the equivalent of 1 year of annual service credit. And so, in essence, each year that they're providing the supportive services, it would, in essence, pay down the loan, amortize the loan based on the term. To audit whether or not they're actually complying, for those borrowers who are in the process of providing services, we conduct site visits to sort of audit them on site. We require that they provide backup documentation. For borrowers who are requesting credits for previous years, we're going to be getting backup documentation from them that demonstrates that they were indeed providing the services.
Okay. And then in terms of valuing the services, I mean, it's hard to put a dollar value sometimes on community benefit services. How is that determination made?
We determined it by, in essence, we're looking at the total loan term, and we're valuing it, the services as an annual service credit is in essence 1 year of the term of the loan. So we're looking at how many years they provided to calculate it, you'd basically take the total amount of the loan and divide it by the loan term and get the annual service credits that the project could qualify for. And provided that they're providing those services on an annual basis, then they'll be paying down the loan on an annual basis. In a year that they wouldn't, there's an opportunity that we might have to actually extend the loan if that were to happen. That's how we're valuing it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. This is item 6.
You're adopting the CEO report?
Yes. Item 5, right?
An item. Item number 6 is a motion by Bonin, Rue, and Cedillo relative to tenant relocation assistance required for evictions under the Ellis Act, increasing the affordable housing replacement requirement, tenant right of first refusal due to demolition, and authority to restrict the provision of affordable development incentives.
This is a proposal for a report back, correct?
In terms of the motion,
Yes.
if you so desire.
I'm sorry?
It's, if that's what the committee wants to request, yeah.
Yes. public comment. This is item 6. We say we missed a lot of people. On item 1, is everybody happy item 1 is done? I don't have anybody on item 6. Do you have people? Are there people here for item 6?
Yeah, there's a.
You're welcome to comment. You're not required or compelled. We are going to move this, and my thought is that the discussion, the substantive discussion, would occur when we have substantive matters to consider, the report back. But if you have signed up to speak and you want to speak, you're more than welcome.
Susan wants to speak.
Well, let's not miss that opportunity. Do you want to breathe? Like a moth to light.
Susan Hunter, Housing is a Human Right. I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, you go.
We're open for comment, right?
Yeah.
Let's do this. So first, I got to say thank you for finally getting this agendized. I understand his report back. Obviously, my main concern being that Ellis abuse. Corporations, overseas conglomerates are coming over, buying up our housing, and then claiming they're leaving the rental market when they are not. Ellis does not cover replacement housing. So we absolutely have a path to be able to make sure that people are not displaced due to new construction. So therefore, we can just simply create replacement housing and put people back in while creating more housing and pushing back on our displacement and homeless issues. My 2 technical amendment requests would be that there's 2 parts of this motion that speak to relocation. One part being based on a citywide median average of a comparable unit, and one being on a neighborhood plan district for a comparable unit. I would say make it the citywide. I would also ask, please, can we put a deadline on this? We're just leaving it too open-ended. So please, let's put a deadline, have some hard dates. Let's get this thing done. Thank you so much.
On this, sections 2 and 3, increasing affordable housing, the replacement housing and right of first refusal, easy to say, right of first refusal. You either or, both, indifferent?
As far as which one has what financial basis?
No value to you.
For me personally, the first right of refusal under demolition as a replacement housing. So in that way we can have a clear-cut path to stop this flood of people losing housing, becoming homeless, and increasing our homeless population.
By having the right to return back to the building that gets, the new building that gets built.
Yep, because if we label it replacement housing, then it's not identified under Ellis. Because you shouldn't be able to outlook. If you're a corporation coming overseas, come on. Come on, you're not leaving the rental market.
Information, I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it,
Sir?
yeah.
Oh, no, she has more to say. I'm not.
No, I only have my
It's your
minute.
turn.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
Well,
Or
good
you're
afternoon.
gonna lose it.
Oh, I'm going to lose it. Oh, time's starting. Hi, my name is Carlos Rojas. I'm a part of the Mitchell-Torrena Tenants Association in Silver Lake. I've been living there since I was born 22 years ago, but the Ellis Act doesn't care about that. Eviction is a word to you and a bullet point when you agreed to take this meeting, but to us it's a nightmare and a blanket statement. To housing and to you it's just us moving, but to us it's flipping our lives on its head. And I work a part-time job in my neighborhood, and I struggle with depression. So just imagine where my mind goes when I'm at work, to where I'm going to go. Where's my family going to go? My parents came to this country with the clothes on their backs and the dream, but my father has been working hard here in this country since the mid-'80s to give his family a good life and my mother to work and make our home a safe haven. Yeah, you all have a secured home. I don't. And to the others here that are in this room, Tri-West Development owns 12 buildings, but to our knowledge, it's Franklin, Angus, Marcia, Edgeworth, Bellevue, and including us, Mitchell-Torrena.
Thank you.
I'm not going to introduce myself. I did that earlier today. We're just here again to strongly support Councilman Rue's motion exploring a revision of the Ellis Act requirements that the city imposes on landlords. We strongly support the relocation assistance. We strongly support increasing inclusionary replacement requirements for new construction. And we also think that offering the first right of refusal, as Susan was saying, is absolutely vital. I mean, frankly, I'd like to see something like an unconditional or universal right of return for tenants. Now, the reason why is because a lot of the requirements in practice that are often placed on affordable housing replacement in the new construction themselves oftentimes results in tenants not being able to properly reapply to be able to come back into their housing. And so that is a real problem. And in fact, a lot of times not enough housing is set aside for them to begin with. We also believe that imposing restrictions on subsidies to developers who wantonly abuse the Ellis Act needs to stop. The Ellis Act, let's be clear, was meant initially to be a get-out-of-jail-free card for small mom-and-pop landlords, and it was like taking a bazooka to kill a fly, and now is being used by big developers across the state to push people out. We think that is deeply wrong and needs to be changed. Thank you.
Enrique Velasquez with the Every Running campaign and also a member of the LA Tenants Union, and we're here to support the motion to basically look really, how can we stop the abuse, how the Ellis Act has been abused by speculators, by big landlords, corporations, investing in LA to basically gentrifying and getting rid of low-income families throughout the city of LA. I, for a long time, have looked at this situation as a socioeconomic problem that carries like psychological problems on kids that no longer can attend schools when they get evicted from their homes, and the disruption of families, the uprooting of these families, losing their networks and staff. And I think that has to stop. And the city, I believe, has an obligation to look at these things and actually penalize landlords that over and over continue to do this thing because they find loopholes in what we have in place at the moment. Thank you.
Might as well, right? Carlos Aguilar, Coalition for Economic Survival. The Ellis Act has resulted in the loss and tenant displacement of over 26,000 RSO units since 2001 and rising. CES thanks Councilmember Ryu and Bonin for these motions that seek to increase affordable housing replacement requirements, increase relocation assistance, and buy at-risk properties, which we support. But to really address Ellis Act impacts on a city level, solution requests must also come from the planning department. The Ellis Act maintains the city's land use powers, and that's where the leverage is. So if more discussion is coming, we suggest you add reports from planning on restricting RSO demolitions, restricting developments where RSO units have been Ellised, and restricting tenants in common conversions. Plus, we need the city's elected leaders to continue to make inroads to cut displacement and help put pressure on the state to eliminate or significantly amend the Ellis Act. Renters in our city are counting on you to do all you can to save their housing. Thank you.
Sir?
Good afternoon, Joe Donlan with Strategic Actions for a Just Economy. Here to support Councilmember Ruiz and Bonin's motions. A couple quick points regarding relocation assistance provisions. We support the objective of increasing the relo, but have some questions regarding the proposed methodology for determining that amount. Regarding right of first refusal, again, support all of these motions. I think the goal should also be to take into account the number of households or number of families that are evicted, that are displaced as part of Ellising. As we know, there are often more than one family living in a unit that gets Ellised. I handed out something to you all to take a look at. One particular urgent matter that appears to be accelerating Ellis Act evictions is the recent creation of federal opportunity zones. You'll see that only 12.5% of the city's census tracts are opportunity zones, but in those opportunity zones, 25% and 27% of Ellis filings have been taking place. And you'll see that in the first year of the Opportunity Zones, Ellis Act evictions have spiked remarkably high, and in 2019 we expect that number to surpass 2018. And so we need to address Ellis Act evictions here in the Housing Committee and take this over to Plum as well and look at land use overlays to protect communities located in Opportunity Zones. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lupita Gonzalez. I'm the tenant organizer with ACE, Alliance of California for Community Empowerment. I'm a tenant in District 8. And I'm here to support the motion for the Council Member Ryu and Bonnie about the Ellis Act. Every day we lose affordable housing. Every day we lose the rent control housing. And then every day families need to they be pushed out because Ellis Act. And then I support strongly to stop these speculators, these companies to come in our communities and then put apart our families. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Scarlett De Leon, Organizing and Program Manager with Alliance for Community Transit, Los Angeles. We support this motion that instructs HCID to report back options for increasing the affordable housing replacement requirement for new building construction, to report back with options for the city to acquire RSO properties that are at risk for LS evictions, to name a few. We recognize the need for an LS Act reform statewide. However, there are actions that can be taken locally to protect tenants. We urge LA City to evaluate and pursue a variety of options to reform the LS Act and protect at-risk properties, as well as pursue other tenant protections and preservation strategies. We support these motions that seek to advance affordable and rent stabilization. Thank you. And then just on a personal note, I grew up in Los Angeles. My family was constantly evicted. In third grade, I went to 3 different schools and completely missed a bunch of things. And recently, my mom was also evicted from a rent control unit. So this is kind of a lifelong thing that folks have to go through. So thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi again, this is Danielle Leidner-Pretz with AGLA. We submitted a letter on this matter previously. I'll just highlight a few of the points. There's been no data presented that reflects a correlation between the LS Act evictions and homelessness. We ask that you request that staff look into that matter. With regard to relocation fees, they should be based on a fixed formula and not one that uses variables that are based on a renter's unique circumstances, because that would be complicated to administer and place a hardship on small owners trying to exercise their right to exit the rental market. It's also important to note that cases where excessive relocation has been applied have been struck down. The last thing I'd like to mention is that we're in the midst of a serious housing shortage, and some of the motion suggestions would only serve to prevent further development because it would discourage rather than encourage what we need at this time. Thank you.
Muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Mario Canel. Vivo en el 1432 Michel Torena. Tengo 33 años. Mario Canel.
Hi, my name is Mario Carnera, and I live in Mitchell, Torena.
Tengo 33 años de vivir ahí y por lo consiguiente aquí tengo una extensión que me dio housing. Pero parece ser que al dueño no le parece esto. A un vecino ya le dijo, en este mes te me vas, pero así. ¿A dónde voy a dar? ¿Al cementerio? ¿En la calle?
I've been living in this apartment complex for about 33 years. I got an automatic extension through the housing department for my Ellis eviction. However, it seems that the landlord doesn't care about this. He immediately told me and another neighbor that we needed to leave as quickly as possible, and I asked myself, where am I going to go? Am I going to go to the cemetery to live?
Thank you so much.
Mi nombre es Dora Obando y lo que él dijo es cierto. A mí me dieron una explicación. Ya tengo 18 años viviendo allí. Tengo 74 años y no sé por qué me mandan ahora que tengo que desocupar el apartamento por 6 meses. Ahí me disculpa porque me pongo nervioso.
My name is Don Walto, and I've been living in this building for about 18 years. I also received an eviction via the Ellis Act, and I'm sorry if I'm getting emotional because it's very difficult for me.
Y no tengo dónde ir a vivir ahorita. ¿Y dónde me voy a ir? Ahí pago 650 y no sé dónde irme ahorita. Solo me están dando 5 meses o 6 meses. En enero, febrero, tengo que desocupar el apartamento. Y discúlpeme.
I'm sorry for getting emotional. I don't know where to go. I've been living in this apartment for a long time. I pay $650 for my rent, and now I don't know where I'm going to end up as a result of this.
Thank you. Gracias.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Alejandra Santiago, miembro del Sindicato de Inquilinos de Los Ángeles.
Hi, my name is Alejandra Santiago, and I'm a member of the LA Tenants Union.
Como pueden ver, los casos de las dos personas mayores que tenemos aquí, así nos llegan todos los días hoy.
As you can see, the two tenants that came before us, these two senior citizens, these are cases that come to us very often.
Solo soy yo una ama de casa que ha tenido que aprender un poquito sobre vivienda para poder ayudar a otras amas de casa y...
Oh, pardon. I'm a stay-at-home mother who has had to learn about tenant rights and housing rights so I could teach or help other people about their rights.
Okay, he aprendido un poco sobre el acta ELIS para poder explicarle a estas personas que viven bajo control de renta.
I've had to teach myself a lot about the Ellis Act, in fact, so that I could help those folks who are living in units that are under the Rent Stabilization Ordinance.
Que a pesar de que vivimos bajo control de renta, el acta ELIS está causando un gran desalojo en este momento.
Despite the fact that they are living under a rent-stabilized apartment complex, that because of the Ellis Act, there's a lot of displacement as a result of it.
¿Cómo les explico mi entender que para mí esto está ocurriendo porque los dueños no se conforman con una ganancia justa? Los dueños quieren una ganancia desproporcionada.
How do I explain to these folks that this is happening because landlords are trying to claim an unjust profit out of tenants? How do I explain that to them?
Está en sus manos. Ustedes tienen el poder para parar esto.
It's in your hands. You folks have the power to be able to put a stop to these
Para
cases.
evitar que tengamos más.
To stop that we continue having these issues.
Que tengamos más personas viviendo en la calle, no por problemas mentales, no por adicciones, sino por problemas de necesidad económica. Está en sus manos evitarlo. Gracias.
We could stop that a number of other folks are becoming homeless. They're not becoming homeless only because of drug addiction or because of mental illness. They are being pushed out because of economic reasons. It's in your hands to take a stop to put a stop to this. Thank you.
Hi, Azad Amir Ghassemi, representing the Anti-Eviction Mapping Project. First, I want to applaud Council for taking comprehensive steps around stabilizing the housing market. One thing I would urge them is to ask for more reporting about like how many tenants actually come back to right of return, like require reporting. Right now, we only track Ellis evictions in Los Angeles. We don't track all the other types of evictions in San Francisco. Ellis evictions are about 10% of total evictions. The courts give us all the data there. So here, the courts are a little more about privacy. So if there are ways that we can actually get data from the sheriff's department, from other kinds, for like final evictions or 60, 30-day notices, that would be great. If we could get that data. Finally, no, that's it. Funding for HSID to actually do it is actually important too. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. Emma Howard, Director of Planning for Councilmember David Rue. I wanted to mention that this is near and dear to the council member's heart. As he always says, he grew up in an apartment north of Koreatown and south of Hollywood. I want to keep this brief to take a note of the intent of the motion. This is part of a whole suite of motions that the council has been introducing to give us an ability to tackle the problem with tools at the city. We're all working together to try and address a complex issue, and there's an urgency, as you can see and feel in the room, as we all know so well. We're just asking for a report back on what we can do locally to improve the process, and we would ask that you consider potentially putting a time limit or a date certain return just to help make sure that this continues moving forward. Maybe whatever HSID can handle, essentially. The council member believes that Ellis reform is needed at the state level predominantly, but in the meantime, locally, our goal is to make sure that we do everything we can within that parameter to make sure that our renters are able to stay in place and find a way to buy at-risk properties or help make sure that they stay affordable. And I want to just make a note, the council member himself said when he released the motion, we can and do more to protect our renters and affordable housing stock. It means doing everything in Los Angeles we can to stem the tide of displacement and stop the bleeding. Thank you very much, and I can answer any questions.
Questions?
What would the chair think would be a reasonable time to put on the reports back? because I agree that it's always helpful when we ask for significant reports back, especially when we ask for a lot of them, to have a target date for completing it. Otherwise, they go into the ether. So.
Yep. Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's also important to let workers know what their expectations are and give them the appropriate time and tools to do their job, since they are doing it and not simply demanding it. So can I get a projection in terms of what your needs are, what your projections are, and how much time you think this takes?
Good afternoon, Claudia Monterrosa, Director of Public Policy at HZLA. We are currently working on a variety of motions, and some are related, and there has been recent state legislation that just passed, and particularly SB 330, that would have some sort of direct impact on some of these report backs. So we're sifting through all of that new legislation, not only impacting Ellis, but rent control, new state funding legislation, and there are a couple of motions that we're working on, including inclusionary zoning and fair share, which is one of your motions. And so that one is a little bit further along, and we hope to come back earlier. So I would think 90 days to have a report back sometime next in February with a report back around there, if that's reasonable, because we also do have a very limited staff that are handling the same issues, and we will want to do fully research this and come back with very viable options, because there's a lot that can be done within these instructions, and also what is feasible and not feasible for the city to consider.
Thank you for the projections. Let me also ask that there's attention paid to specific either instances or evaluation or anecdotes, if that's all that we have, but what happens on the relocation costs that are paid, what are real-term, real-life experiences that are happening, so that we have a body of work to evaluate and to figure out then what's the appropriate policy, right?
So an analysis of potential relocation packages and indicators to come back with.
What are the experiences also?
And experiences, okay.
Okay. Okay. ¿Algo más? That's it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Is this clear?
That's it.
This clear? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you. No objection? Well, don't be shy. I don't know you to be shy. You just come on up, Mickey.
Don't snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yeah, don't, you winning, I know. I don't know what you were doing. Can we, well, yeah, so the meeting's still going on, everybody, please.
This is quick. We're losing 6 units a day to Ellising, the RSO units. We can't create more because we aren't allowed to. So that's a really deep loss. So that's like over 2,000 units a year, which is almost 6,000 people a year. We can't absorb that. We know where they're going. They're on our streets. In the 25,000 people that we've lost is 68,000. That's the data we're given at the city of about 2.7 people per unit. I'm a small landlord, and my units are rent stabilized, and I'm fine with it. I think we have such a bad emergency in terms of affordable housing that we need to consider a moratorium on the Ellis Act. We got to stop the bleeding, and we're bleeding out to the tune of over 6,000 people, or 6,000 people a year. And there's nowhere for them to go because we can't make more of these units.
Hello, I just want to ask you a question. Very simple question is, what do you guys think that is creating homeless more and more and more every day? That's my question.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any more questions or comments? I thank you for your attendance and participation. That clears the desk?
Yes. The meeting is
Motion to adjourn? No objection? Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.